And with the winner being whichever runner reaches the highest floor in and out were first.
And Blue Touch, to answer your question, Azure Dreams being a roguelike game, it is turn-based, although it plays a little bit like an actual game, and a lot of the elements are like a puzzle game in some respects. In that you have to figure out how to use your limited resources in the most effective way to be able to ascend this brutally difficult tower.
Yep, this game does not expect you to do this in an hour. This game does not expect you to do this in 5, 10, 15 climbs. But it is doable for some runners to be able to climb.
Right, so the runners will begin here on a tutorial floor, where Junie will yammer at them incessantly about the game's mechanics, and they'll get to pick up their starting kit of a copper sword, wooden shield, a fireball with 5 charges, a medicinal herb, and a palumpa egg. Of that starting toolkit, the palumpa egg is probably the most versatile item. It can be fed to your familiar Junie or another familiar to restore MP. It can be used for a one-off attack, so-called egg bombing. And there's some more niche uses like destructing particular egg-eating monsters, those being vipers.
Yep, they're not a terrible... While vipers won't be an issue until they've made it about halfway up the tower starting at floor 20, it is a possibility. The palumpa egg that you get on your first run through the tower is often, these days, commonly used for what we would call water-kun strat. This game has an elemental triangle in which fire beats wind, wind beats water, water beats fire. Kun is initially a fire-type monster, and the vast majority of monsters you're going to find threatening in and of themselves are going to be either water or fire. And so water is, in an ideal situation, your preferred element of choice. The reason this wasn't done for a fairly long time is that we initially weren't sure how much spell levels affected damage. It's because, as you see, both of these runners are using mixture magic, and that's your best, fastest means of getting out more damage. In the end, it turns out that all value of level to mixture magic caps out around, 11 or 12 or so. So, it became more efficient to switch to water if given the possibility.
Okay, thank you, Champ, for letting me know about audio. Hopefully this is much better. Champ, please confirm.
Yeah, we hope that'll work. This is I'd like to thank Programmer for pinch hitting, since this particular stream came together pretty quickly. And we are glad to have you. Anyway, the runners are now on to actually randomly generated levels, though these runs are using... Oh dear, that is a warp trap on razorflamekun's side, and that's one of the worst things that can happen early in your run, or later in your run, or in general. But... luckily, puts him right by the elevator. He's not in danger. We've given a bit of history on this game. We're in the runs. But it is worth noting that while the game itself is 20 years old or so, these runners are fairly new, and the Stars Tournament is designed to promote new runners in the community and give them practice that they can need to convert into any percent runs eventually, as the conditions are fairly similar. The one main difference is that this is a seated tower seat. Both runners are running at the same time and on the same tower. So we're going to be seeing them have different ways of approaching roughly the same problems, give or take the fact that monsters will act differently based on how they move.
So chat, is my audio better now?
So, but it's hard for me to say. Hey, headphones. So we'll see what chat says when it comes to that. Anyway, they managed to get through the first couple of floors, and what you're going to be seeing is they're going to be trying to explore these first few floors as much as possible. This is the part where the game expects you to still be here on your first time through the tower, and so is meant to be reasonably doable for Kuhn with his starting level and Ko with his starting set of equipment.
Right, the monsters, you're not going to find big threats quite so regularly. You'll find on floor 3, like xxshuzoxx, cyclones, which have a decent HP pool, and on razorflame's floor 4, you'll begin to find balloons, which have quite a bit more attack than you may be ready for when you first encounter them. And also decent HP pool. You'd think for a balloon they'd be a little bit more
easy to pop, I suppose, would be a way of putting it.
It's earlier today, so I got to put a lesson in fragility of balloons there.
Right. One thing to notice in how they've approached these floors is that razorflame has switched to equipping that iron shield and that stream wand. That wand is giving him a boost to damage, though it is less effective on wind monsters like the Cyclone. Well, or at least less effective than it maximally could be, due to the elemental triangle. Meanwhile, Shuzo has not yet committed. He is waiting to see if he finds something better, because weapons and shields you find in the tower can be cursed. And when they're cursed, they're usually weakened, and also you can't take them off. Shuzo might be holding out for, say, a Scarlet Wand, which would boost Kuhn's fire elemental magic, while the Stream Wand would boost a water elemental spell.
Although both still give the overall boost of having a wand, which is quite nice. That was the second Stream Wand that we saw in razorflame walk over, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. He has actually switched back to the Copper Sword for taking on the Cyclone. I don't know the damage numbers offhand, but he definitely is a little bit, took a moment to get his controls set up. The reversal trap can be really mean for that sort of thing. Thankfully the game allows you to really take your time, make sure you've got the right angle, and hopefully also use that mini-map so you're not confused by the isometric perspective.
Yeah, this game is a turn-based game, though it plays snappily enough that unless you're sort of deliberately examining this, you might not notice it right away. Also, man, that is a rough spawn on floor 5 for razorflame. Luckily, some of that is asleep, but we're also seeing Manawivas who are probably your first big threat after the introduction of Flames on Floor 2. Flames on Floor 2 is your first big threat. Manuivas are probably your second big threat. They are water elemental monsters, so you're dealing less damage with Kuhn's fire elemental attack. They have a decent amount of HP, they have a decent amount of damage. They can split into other Manuivas who are significantly weaker. But at an early phase where you haven't gotten a whole lot of levels to build up your HP, 1 HP matters. 1 HP a turn matters.
Absolutely. So we see Razorflame get out of that situation that could have caught a newer runner off guard, knowing to deal with the larger threat of the original Manueva first, compared to the lower level clone that was spun off of it.
Shuzo just lost Kuhn through Kuhn's own stupidity. He tried to get it out of the way, and Kuhn decided, no, I'm not going to do that, and that is the worst. He is going to have a significantly harder time. Since this tournament allows multiple entries, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts maybe getting a little bit of a trigger finger on heading home if he can find a wind crystal. This game does not give you a way to leave the tower without dying automatically. And if you die, you lose all your stuff. You keep your monsters levels, but that's about the long and short of it.
Right. So we see Shuzo here going ahead and chucking his shield at that flame to try to do a little bit of damage at a distance. I very much like that play. He already has a better shield, so there'd be no reason to switch back. And for as far as chuck things go, chucking a shield or sword does the most damage. Razorflame moving on to floor 6. Floor 6 is the start of the water floors, floors 6 through 9, which, per the elemental triangle that Deme mentioned earlier, are the first jump in difficulty. You still see a balloon here, a fire monster, but
so this is the last floor that balloons will be on, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And soon more difficult monsters will start appearing, and this is the part where the game expects you to go home, possibly in a body bag, possibly you lucked into finding a wind crystal. Either way, it wants you to go back, it wants you to keep building Kuhn's level, well, it wants you to build up better gear across multiple trips, and it wants you to spend time in the town. In any percent, and in therefore tournament runs like these, we're going to try and do as little of any of that as possible, especially not spending time in the town.
Yes, there will be no time for dating today, no time for herb building buildings, because, they're already 13 minutes through their 1 hour for game 1, So here we see a common confusion, Shuzo going ahead and firing off that water ball, hoping to get, for himself, protection against water, but unfortunately it only fires in a direct line and provides that to whatever you should so hit with that spell. And without using a repel ball to set up reflection, it's very difficult to be able to actually use the water ball to give yourself fire protection.
It's very unfortunate. Razorflame used a pretty uncommon trick, if only because it's a little troublesome to set up, but occasionally worthwhile. throwing a light seed at one of the balloons in the hallway to turn it into a fire elemental to give him a little bit of an edge in taking it out. And that manages to get him almost through this whole situation. But now it is time for him to use some resource or another. The reason you don't see that more often is that for the most part, seeds are not an especially powerful item if used in that way. Also, Razorflame also losing Cune, and so now we have 2 Cuneless runs going on. And we'll see how they deal with that situation where there is no firepower, and there's no extra monster around to soak up hits.
Yep, I was worried there for... Oh, that's interesting. Shuzo is still choosing not to go up to floor 6. Really taking a moment to make sure that he has explored all of floor 5. That's perfectly reasonable, especially given that there's a decent chance he's looking for a wind crystal. We see there Razorflame using his egg bomb to deal with that threat, and now that he's building up a bit of a monster train, this is becoming a little perilous.
Yeah, he's made a couple of little movement errors, and now he is in trouble. He is in a bad situation, and it's not clear that he has really any situation to deal with this. The Mahel Seed is not going to do it. This is a common error, and basically amounts to you get the Mahel Seed bonus starting on next turn. That would have saved him maybe a turn ago, but now it's just too late. And he is the first one out of this tower, and is going to have to see what Tower 2 has in store for him.
Yep, so I've switched over to Shuzo's audio. Although Shuzo is not technically in the lead because Razorflame made it to floor 7, so to reach the lead, Shuzo would need to make it to, at a minimum, floor 8 before Razorflame makes it there.
Yep. While Razorflame is able to go back in, he will have a little bit of a harder time. He doesn't have that starting kit. Ending kit. Also, to answer the question of how it goes, basically, these runners have 1 hour to get as high as they can. They can make re-entries, they can keep retrying until that hour is up. We will judge basically on who got to the higher floor, and if they both died on either their hour ran out on the same floor, then it's who reached that floor first. Like Programmer was saying, Shuzo will have to reach floor 8 to have the new highest floor. Anyway, Razorflame has made his re-entry, and it looks like he is planning on having Cune go on a bit of an offensive, as the one thing he does have going into this tower is Cune's levels and Cune's strength.
Right.
And that can help him. It can be like, and here we have a lot of these runners are coming at this from any percent where it's not especially common to practice multiple entries, and so a lot of any percent runners or a lot of new runners don't really have a grasp on the 3 starting floor layout. Now, that you have on your second plus entry. Shuzo seeing the monster train, seeing that U-boat with its little periscope sticking out over the surface of the floating floor. Don't ask how that works. A wizard did it, I'm sure. And just noping on out of this. Yep. It is worth noting that while the first entry shares a seed, the second entries will share a seed with each other there as well. So Razorflame's second tower and Shuzo's second tower will be the same, their third entry into the tower would also be the same if they happen to do that before our hour is up. There are like roughly 40 seeds seed up. Is that correct?
32.
Yeah, that makes sense numerically. And that is some very impressive work programmer has put into the de-randomizing randomizer, which has more functions than we will be displaying today. Hey, because we wanted this to be as much like an any percent run as possible.
Exactly. If you want to randomize monsters, you can do that. If you want to spawn portable elevators, you can do that. But here, we're only de-randomizing the towers so that the players get at least the opportunity to have the same experience. And skipping over the intro just because we want to get into the action here, and when they load up Nude Seed, we don't need to see all of Ko's childhood.
Right, this is the reason our times, even for regular runs, start at the first movement outside Ko's house, as opposed to, like, the startup of the game. It's very nice. And yes, thank you for the link to the Discord. Turned on for Go. It is a wonderful community. We are doing new things kind of all the time. Now, Razorflame did decide to fight Ghost, or at least have Kuhn do more of the fighting for him to get that medicinal seed herb to make up some of that lack of the opening starting kit. Shuzo, meanwhile, has made it up to floor 9 to an area that's, I think, a little bit less difficult, or at least almost to an area that's a little bit less difficult, though he is still having a very difficult time of it. Dreamins are not formidable monsters, but boy, that was close.
That was very close indeed. As you
When
mentioned,
you're
Dreamins...
alone, they can be pretty formidable, more than you would expect, from the fact that the rest of the time they're kind of just annoying.
Exactly, and heading up to floor 10 on low HP, that's... we're heading up to any floor really on low HP.
Wow.
Oh.
That's
So
bad.
one room floor, starting fairly far away from the elevator. I don't know exactly what Keeney's level is, but Razorflame does have a wand.
Actually going for an item. That's a bit surprising, but I suppose he figures on floor 4, it's not too bad. However, the thing about one-room floors is that monster aggro works either based on rooms or hallways. If you're in a room, then they can see you from wherever they are, and Shuzo goes down cornered by a pair of griffins. He will soon be dealing with the second tower, and also be using this fourth floor sooner or later. Razorflame using an acid rain ball and wiping off most of the monsters on this floor, giving him a fairly free range to deal with problem, and uncursing that leather suit. That is probably very nice, as it doesn't provide a lot of defense. And to begin with, it's better than literally nothing, but it's... Well, actually, and I think -1, it might be the same as literally nothing. And in fact, because it was cursed, it might be worse than literally nothing. Because being cursed gives you a negative status effect. That's secret, and the game never tells you about it.
That's correct. But now that he's removed the decurse, that status debuff will remain, but keeping that leather shield equipped until potentially finding something better still is worthwhile for the improved dodge chance. I've switched audio over to Razorflame again. He is
Scarlet Wand. That is one of the best items you can get. That is basically your preferred wand for a Fire Kune strat, because in addition to... Yeah, I think Shuzo probably has a bit of an advantage. Well, Shuzo has the lead, technically, but it's hard to say if he has the advantage. I think that's really going to come down to what decisions he makes. His Kune didn't get as far as Razorflame Kune, though the good news is that luckily it's probably enough to help him with these early levels. There's still plenty of time next, the lead can change. Razorflame, using that Acid Rain Ball, I am surprised. I'm both surprised that he did that and surprised that that worked. Because Acid Rain Balls pretty often will be one charge only. Spell Balls have a limited number of charges in them, and Acid Rain, due to it hitting every monster in the room, tends to deal a lot. Tends to have not a whole lot of charges. Oh, he white sanded it? Then yeah, that makes much more sense. He knew he would have an extra charge. That does answer it. Thank you, Sandman.
right. So Acid Rain, in terms of pure spell damage, it does have the highest raw damage of any spell. Not including Mixture Magic or anything along those lines. And definitely quite powerful, and I always feel conflicted about, even if I'm in a very perilous position, using it on just a single monster, because I feel like, oh, if only it's one of those moments where you feel conflicted about actually wanting more monsters to be around you, if for no other reason than to get a little bit more experience for the kill, or just not
more money for more bang for your buck.
Exactly. So we see that Shuzo has found the same golf wand that Razorflame had found before. We know that Shuzo is going to find a Scarlet Wand later on. I didn't see which floor he found that on.
I think that might have been on floor 4, but I'm not entirely sure myself.
Interesting that Razorflame is picking up the Wind Crystal, reflecting the possibility that he may decide that it'd be worthwhile leaving, which would at least reflect that, or remove that curse debuff. But also that he's scouting wands, which tells me that he's either looking for a stream wand to potentially do water Kune strats, or to sometimes players like the life wand, the added survivability that it gives you.
That is an interesting move. Razorflame using the Mahel Seed on Kune to give Kune extra turns while he's on the offensive here to do some of the dirty work. Makes sense, Kune was running low on HP, it's just not a move you generally see. Because after all, even if Kune has extra turns, Razorflame doesn't, basically. And so you're more often likely to see Mahel Seeds used on Ko himself, rather than his monster. Oh, getting a lucky view of the elevator on the zoom in for the 7th floor. Shuzo not electing to fight Ghost, electing to just head on up to the 3rd floor.
It's true that it does give Kune 3 MP. Given that he was in conflict with the monster, I would think that's that'd be a consideration for later. But very true. So Juzo's found a money wand, which I would take over a golf wand, just based off of how the elemental advantages and disadvantages work out.
Razor using a Palumpe egg, which he picked up to get rid of a bloom. Interesting to note that he's doing some very expert U-boat dancing. U-boats don't want to get the first hit in, and they don't want to be in the same tile as you, and so if you move in a way that would intersect with them, they will move out of your way, basically.
Right,
and
right.
You keep them dancing that way for a while. It's not a long-term strategy, but it can help a little bit. In this case, that is scary how low Kuhn's health is getting, but he does have the damage to finish off that U-boat and begin fighting this Manoe.
Right. Speaking of getting low, Shuzo had gotten a little bit low on HP there, but decided to trail the monsters around for a while so it could gain back some HP. You gain back your max HP out of 256 per turn, so in this case I think it's about 9 turns per HP.
Gain some HP and also put him in a position where he wasn't fighting both the troll and the flame at the same time by using that one wide hallway.
Right, yes. Sometimes those choke points can be scary, but when you use them to your advantage, absolutely, they can be nice. Speaking of nice things, I'm sure that they're both glad that they've got that restore scroll in their back pocket, because both of them had to end their runs early, at least in part, due to the loss of Kuhn. So, the added survival. I was going to say about U-boat dancing, that's kind of the opposite of good partner dancing, because oftentimes with U-boat dancing, you're trying to deliberately step on it every turn, versus actual dancing, where stepping on your partner is generally not the way to go.
Razorflame getting to that 10th floor. I forget if Shuzo had made it to the 10th floor. I'm sure you have a document open to tell us that. But Shuzo is not quite taking the same leisurely pace through the 4th floor as all the monsters swarm in on his location. Monsters can aggro you just by being in a room with you, and so a one-room floor is very, very unpleasant as they see you from as far away as they need to. They will all hone in on your location with maximum efficiency.
Yep. So I have a note that Shuzo made it to 11.
Okay, so Razorflame is going to have to make it to floor 12 to take back the scoring lead in this way. But I think he's in a very good setup to do that, provided nothing goes horribly wrong. This is the Monster Tower, though. Things can go horribly wrong at a moment's notice. It does not. Oh, this is a trap room, and that is unpleasant. Or at least it's probably a trap room. Once that you find 2 traps, my brain immediately goes, trap room, any step here is a dangerous step.
Right, you definitely would want to take that encounter from the high ground, as it so happens, not able to do that. Does have his medicinal from, earlier, so thanks to the poison wearing off, he's able to, probably take out the volcano with this next hit here. Ooh! Down to 1 HP due to a lower damage roll. Yes, that volcano absolutely had the potential to take him out, and no more medicinals available, so Thankfully, CUNY's nearly full health, so CUNY should be able to take out the Dreamin'.
Yep. Razorflame does have to be at least a little cautious with using Kyun for his main offensive at this point, because that can be a very dangerous sort of, what's the word? Monsters can still aggro on you, and this is around the point where you might want to be sure that your Kyun's not about ready to run out of HP.
Right, so the water ball, I really like it. Oh, Shuzo actually taking off his cursed leather shield with not running with any shield at all. He may be thinking that the mere fact that it's cursed, or it had been cursed, was a problem. But yes, the water ball, absolutely great play there. It reduces the amount of damage, I think probably before defense, by a factor of 4. So 75% damage reduction. Yes, from fire sources only, but
luckily this is the exact right place for that to be a concern.
Yes.
Oh, Steel Shield +1, they are both getting rid of that leather. Their shield. Though defense will help, and certainly Razorflame has been taking some pretty heavy hits this time around.
Right. I think that's definitely something that we've seen in terms of the runners' playstyles. Is I'd say that they're fairly familiar or similar in that neither one has done that much of in the way of AI 1 strats. So Ko has been tanking more hits than. Ooh.
Oh. Shuzo found a warp trap that Razorflame did not, and he loses Kyun once again. Luckily, he has those resource scrolls. Oh, Huh. I don't think it's supposed to work that way. I guess, there we go. Maybe he tried to use it on itself?
I think there's every possibility that happened. So while he must be glad that he has 2 honor scrolls, it really hurts to burn one accidentally. Razorflame coming up to floor 11 here, so tying Shuzo's best. Shuzo still does technically have the lead within the game, which Razorflame can take if he goes up the elevator to floor 12. Of course, he doesn't know this, so just playing this as he normally would.
So we'll see whether or not he wants to head up right away, and it looks like he is, and that is giving him the score lead, and will be setting the pace for at least the foreseeable future. It's not impossible for Shuzo to make up the difference if Razorflame has some hard luck coming up soon.
Right. So we see just how much more damage that Volcano is able to do when Kyun doesn't have the production of the water ball. That Volcano is doing 11, 12 damage versus 1 before, because that's reducing damage before defense. So interesting play here that Razorflame's using that Ice Rock Ball to block off that hallway. Monsters would have been aggroed onto it even if it hadn't been too wide, but it's enough to really ensure that nothing is going to be getting past, and they're only able to attack it one at a time, so that Ice Rock is going to last some time. Blue color right next to the elevator.
You always love to see it.
Oh yeah.
It's one of the...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just saying that it's one of the opportunities where you can see the tower showing a different, less immediately malevolent face. More like a witch with a candy house. As opposed to its regular face, which is just the witch.
How very true. So Razor Flame up here on 13, finding the elevator, going to 14, and just under 2/3 the way through the time. How do you think he's feeling, Deme, about being where he is at the time that he's there?
I think I would feel a little bit nervous, if only because he doesn't know how his opponent took that first tower run. If the opponent has taken any other tower run, for that matter, or if the opponent has been on that first tower the whole time. Still, I think he has to be pleased with how well he's bounced back from that. And maybe he's thinking that Shuzo might have had as hard a time as him, if not harder. That is always the hope in these races, that your opponent may have had an even harder time. But at the end of the day, you can't be too focused on what your opponent is doing. And so I think being able to hit floor 14 on your second run at 40 minutes is very good and something to feel pretty pleased about. Now, even though the runners have been growing by leaps and bounds across this tournament, and floors that would have been exceptional on the first couple of matches here are fairly normal to see, and that's really the exciting thing about the Stars Tournament and its big accomplishment. Yes, he's made it up to 15. At that. And there is another conveniently placed elevator that is a very small looking floor, finding another acid rainfall. Well, the game has turned weirdly generous after a while of being pretty stingy.
Yeah, they've gotten some better shields with the steel shield. They've gotten steel shield +1, no less. They've gotten Scarlet Wands, Restore Scrolls,
Fire Crystal. And another one on Shuzo's side, I don't think Razor Flame took that path through floor 7, so he didn't get that Tumna fruit we saw, and he didn't get that Fire Crystal. He got a different Fire Crystal. Razor is making very good time. I wouldn't be too surprised if he elects to linger on floor 16 for a little while, and look for one of the rarer monsters in the tower, the Barong, which spawns on floor 16, 26, and 36, and is just a delight. He is Azure Dreams' very own Gachapon machine.
Yes, but thankfully no microtransactions here. All it takes is one of your items, any one at all, to get something new here. Did CUNY trigger a trap? Perhaps a blinder trap? Or a poison
Looks like
trap?
a poison trap, yeah. And there's the Barong. At just the right minute. Also, Sandknight dishing out some interesting ideas in chat, including shooting a weak ball into a room to scout it out a little bit. That is an interesting notion. Razor Flame hopefully using the acid rain ball that was already used up and not the one he has right now. Okay, that's Shawnee's idea. But yes, let's credit where credit is due while also acknowledging that is probably one of the better uses for a not terribly useful ball. While we didn't really get much out of that Barong, though, on Razor Flames. But luckily, you do at least get a bag full of EXP after you've worn it down to basically a sleepy, sleepy little nub. What he was doing with the Barong was tossing items at it, and the Barong would spit items back out. That is its special trait. You can do that with a player-owned Barong. You can do some wild stuff with a player-owned Barong. including like item duplication. Shuzo noping on out with the wind crystal, deciding the chance to try again with a third tower. Yeah, it's an item exchange. However, the special thing about the Barong is that, number one, that takes up its turn, and so is a great strategy for if you don't necessarily want to wait around forever, but, you know, you don't want to deal with that Barong. And number two, it avoids rarity, and it's the best. You can get just about anything from it, but including stuff you don't normally see.
Yes, and I believe that to be due to a coding error that it does not properly perform a rarity check. Razor Flame trying to use the red sand on the Scarlet Wand. As the game notes, the Scarlet Wand cannot be trained. As far as the warp
Trained
goes,
Wand
that
can
one.
do that.
Yes.
That is that is the luckiest warp trap. If you always want to, when running into a warp trap, be warped either next to the elevator or next to your monster. Otherwise, it can get very difficult, as we saw on Shuzo's side earlier this raid. That could have been a run ender. But luckily it's not. Anyway, I'm about finished what I was about to say. I was saying that Shuzo has prepared his inventory to make a third entry into the tower. Where he's going to hopefully be relying on like his Scarlet Wand and his higher level Kun to make fast time.
Yes, although he has not yet actually pulled out Kun. I imagine he's doing that right now, yep. But only 5 items are allowed by default. You can remove that limit with the randomizer. You will take in a full 20 if you so choose. Shuzo's got his work cut out for him. Of course, he doesn't know what floor Razor Flame has reached, but even if Razor Flame were to encounter a much less benign warp trap, he's made it up to floor 20.
21.
Yes, so Shuzo would need to make it up to,
22
now
in the next 15 minutes. Probably 23. I doubt he's going to be spending that much time dealing with this unicorn, just dispatching it with a quick flame ball usage. If you pick up a sleeping monster, they don't automatically wake up. I think they can wake up while you're carrying them, but you're already holding them, and the game doesn't recheck you're holding a monster. Oh, an item room. That's neat. Another red sand. The one sand he can't use.
Yep.
Surprisingly, he's using that flame ball on that Palimpa, which is, frankly, not much more threatening than a regular Palimpa. I think that is the collar jacking Palimpa. But yeah, the game won't recheck to see if the monster that wakes up likes or does not like being picked up. You will still be holding it. Flame ball's officially out of use, and so goodbye. But he gets a nice new pillar ball in exchange, and that's good to see.
So, just to answer that definitively, picking up a monster does not inherently wake it up. The fact that you were in melee with it does give it a 1 in 8 chance of waking up, same as if you're in a room with it, but it can stay asleep for some time, depending on how long that check continues to fail and how long the internal status, it has a turn counter on it as well that can run out. Razor Flame's elevator train has ended. hopefully, for his sake, Shuzo gets to find some things the same. Now, of course, he is
His
going to be
hope
trying.
lies in a big dash on the way up. Razorflame finding more sleeping monsters that he can demonstrate whether or not they wake up for us. Blocks are very scary if you're using Watercune strats, because they are wind monsters and take basically no damage from a water elemental attack. But when you're using Firecune, they go down pretty easy.
Yes, and he does have that Pillar Ball in reserve, so he would be able to dispatch the blocks pretty easily, even if he was running with a Watercune.
It's not a great room for Shuzo to be in.
No, definitely not. I mean, at least two of the monsters are asleep, but some damage had been focused on Hune. So that's we've seen this 2 times, at least now from Razorflame, where he's used that blinder on a monster in melee, which will make it attempt to walk straight forward, and if it comes into contact with something, it will attack it directly. I know that definitely it's easy to mix up the blinder ball with the binding ball. One of those two instead causing paralysis. But definitely the blinder ball, you'd like to fire it off when you've got a space of distance, some removed from the monster. Although, as you've pointed out before,
that is a long throw. That throw did not work out the way I think Razorflame wanted it to work out. Luckily, he does still have that restore scroll. But right now, he still has that unicorn to deal with, and this would be a great time for that pillar ball.
Yep. And that's always a interesting thing is the game will attempt to place CUNY directly in front of the direction Ko is facing, and so that space being occupied, CUNY actually got taken out of the bag and vaulted over the unicorn, hopefully watching out for that point, because that seems like a bit of a doozy.
Yeah. Boy, that is quite the chain that we can see on Razorflame's side. Shuzo finding a lot of go-up traps, and he needs every single one of them he can get. As Razorflame has reached 24, I think this puts him properly out of Viper Town now, which he more or less elevated and fought his way through without a whole lot of trouble. Well, but now he has new threats to deal with, because of course you do. The Monster Tower's chain of threats, basically once you hit 20, is never ending.
Yep. You summarized it before with noting for several monsters in a row, one of the more dangerous monsters of the tower. Here we encounter a stealth, which not invisible at this time, so at least not catching Razorflame off guard, but he is only at half health, and he is has a little over 7 minutes left, so his priority is going fast, and if that means burning resources or burning monsters with resources, he's going to do it.
Yep. He's not going to need those resources in 7 minutes, so what difference does it make? Worth noting that zoos have a number of tricks up their sleeves. They lower your monster's AI by 1, and if they lower it to a theoretical 0, aka if they lower it to exactly what Ko is, with when a zoo roars, it will paralyze the monster. If it roars to Ko, it can paralyze you, and that makes zoos much, much, much more threatening than they would otherwise be, especially if they come in a pack. A pride, I suppose, they're kind of lions, now that I think about
Yeah, they're kind of lines. But they're also winged, and they look a little different in the monster book itself. I thought that they were probably derived from the Anzu, as far as their mythology. But so we do come across the Bronc here, learning the acid rain, getting a decent amount of experience there. Because you always encounter Broncs at the same level, you're never going to get more than 256 experience out of them, save for, cases where you've used a malicious spell or something like that, or thrown a bizarre seed at it. Bizarre cases.
Right, things where you deliberately made something happen this way. There is a Mandara between Razorflame and the elevator. With any luck, he'll be able to bypass it while it's blind. He can't lift it, which is a decent thing to check. Really.
Interesting again, standing directly in front of that Mandara while attacking. Again, blind monsters will move straight forward, but it's perfectly understandable given that in so many other games, blinding causes, say, a reduce in accuracy. Oh no! They are perfectly fine attacking with 100% accuracy, or at least the same amount of accuracy that they had before. Whatever is directly in front of them. Razorflame not even waiting to regain a little bit of HP before heading up the elevator.
It is full sprint mode hours. Shuzo has managed to make it back to 410, and then he must be feeling pretty good about that, and given the trouble he has had. But trying to range attack a bow troll is certainly not the world's most winning prospect. It is almost certainly able to outrange attack you, though he burned a couple of fire charges and is able to manage it. It's very possible he'll be able to reach a new highest floor for his run in this hour, where provided he takes that elevator quickly and gets lucky enough with the next elevator or so. And there is Razorflame down on floor 28. That is an exceptional run, and I doubt he will go back in for the next 3 minutes or so. I think he's more likely just going to sit back and relax a bit. Prepare for the next race.
House. Meanwhile, Shuzo's unlikely to exceed floor 28, but of course, we'll let him play out the remainder of his hour. Maybe he finds a mega go up trap and is launched.
He could at least get to 12, because he's now at his previous highest level. It would be nice to see that one little improvement through itineration and the value of multiple entries. That'd be fun to see. And I'm hoping he can find the elevator before the hour is up. Because you're not necessarily always most concerned with racing your opponent. You're racing the tower, which really does not want you to win, and you're racing yourself, and so that little bit of improvement, that little bit of something extra is nice.
Yep, having a little bit of difficulty finding the elevator on this first climb, and let's hope that Griffin does not take the opportunity moving in a corridor like this to fire off a rise spell, but Code shoots first, fires off essentially a rise attack of his own, skillfully dodging out of the way of that Griffin, and
right into the boat troll. These things happen. Boat trolls are the worst. They are my personal nemesis, and I think they might be the nemesis of anyone who ran into a spot of trouble with them. with them, because while they're not the most intimidating monsters, they're pretty intimidating, and more importantly, their long-range attack and their very focused AI, which will attack Ko no matter what condition it is in, basically, if it can do so.
Right, they're much like glaciers in that respect. A few monsters do have that particular AI that depends on their abilities, and so here that Tumna having infrogged the monster, and Shuzo does indeed find the elevator. He will. Yep, there we go. He has
make it to floor 12 in the last second. Again,
yep.
Excellent for him. We will soon have these runners resetting for the next round, and checking out their scenes. And so we'll be alerting them to that. This would be a good time for anyone needing a break to take one. This would be a good time for the runners to take a moment to catch their breath. This is very far from an easy game, and they both did great on the first round of this race, because we are not done yet, folks. Due to the unpredictability of the tower and the difficulty of the tower, where we do have a best-of-3 matchup. So they will be having, at minimum, a second run, maybe a third.
Yep, so we'll go ahead and I've marked 1 point there for Razor Flame. We've asked the runners to move on to the next seed. One of these days, I'd like to build in the ability to have 3 seeds in a single file, but at least setup doesn't take too terribly long, because although the players haven't had a chance to look at these before, we do at least allow them to download all 3 in advance.
Yep, just to make setup a little bit easier. Looking at it, 2, 3, 1. Okay. Shuzo's got the seed correct. We are allowing the runners through these seeds to skip the introductory story and backstory, because an 80% run would just let you load up a save file taken from the very start, from your first movement, more or less. No one wants to be here for several minutes listening to Ko's entire childhood and his squabbles with the girl next door. Well, I suppose she's technically more across the street, but you know. No, his father's mysterious disappearance. When it's on a mysterious night where the tower glowed and sparked and so on, and he never returned home. And there, I've basically told you Ko's entire childhood. Okay, looks like Razor Flame Seed is also good, and we will be ready to get started once they have named their Ko, etc. I think one of the nice things about our let's not listen to Ko's entire childhood policy is that we do get to see names for Ko. Oh, since those don't take up extra time. And like that. So that is very good to see. As Chad is pointing out, this game really does hold up very well for a PlayStation 1 game, as I casually slip the recap of the facts into this situation as we reset for the next race. It is a special little game, which is composed of a whole bunch of things. You have a little bit of a dating sim, you have a little bit, though, a pretty rudimentary tree, town building. You have those puzzle elements as you look through what things in your toolbox with your very limited turn economy can you have. You have, of course, that roguelike element of what is around each corner. It's a very fun game to try out, and I think for the very few, or at least reasonably few people who played it, it definitely sticks out in the memory. There is also a Game Boy Color version, and if you're interested in that, I don't know what's happened to Shuzo's stream. I assume that Shuzo is saying something. Okay, that's good to know. So that will be back in order. That our Azure Dreams community Discord does have a section all about the Game Boy Color version. And if I'm not mistaken, programmer, you were recently doing some work getting a randomizer together so that the Game Boy Color version can have seated towers and presumably whatever else you can think of for that.
Yes, actually, the Game Boy Color version is of the de-randomizer is available. I'm just so it's adrando.com/gbc.
And I will add a little link to that in chat for the sake of it. This game did have a spiritual successor of sorts in Cow's Adventure, but we don't talk about Cow's Adventure because it's not very good. It is not a worthy successor to Azure Dreams.
What's that, Lady Deme? I just heard a bunch of static there for about 15-20 seconds. Don't bother repeating it, though. I'm sure that we all just want to get onto the race here. We've given the runners their countdowns.
Right, so we'll be able to get rolling for our second match. For those of you who might just be turning in, the name of the game here is Azure Dreams. The name of the tournament rule set is that they will be climbing the 40-floor monster tower as far as they can, as fast as they can, and to determine who will win this round, we use the highest floor count. They are allowed multiple attempts at the tower because Azure Dreams is brutal and wants you dead. That's just the facts of the matter. And they will have an hour to see how high they can go. This is the second of a best-of-3 match. And so we'll see whether the Razorflame can grab victory or whether Shuzo can force this to a match 3. I know I am rooting for a match 3. More Azure Dreams is always good. The tower's depth really does allow for so many different things to happen across runs. And it is an extraordinary little game.
Yes, one of the other players in the community, Shawnee, describes it as lightning in a bottle, something that would be difficult, if not impossible, to recreate the feel that this game has, without basically just making it exactly the same game.
Which, I'm not going to lie, would be... I would be down for that. I would be down for a remaster, master or a remake.
Yeah.
That would be, I think, a lot of fun, particularly with a better translation, though ideally not one that sacrifices the valiant effort to translate this game's variety of puns and its Manzai act. This game has a Manzai act in it, in case you want your Japanese two-man comedy bits.
Yep, and,
I know.
I will say it was amusing to say, without ever having seen my house before, that's a dirty hovel. You just can't, you just can't make that up. Okay, so we see that Shuzo now has done the skip around the, that one text box that occurs right at the hallway. Did get a little caught up on the, that corner, so they're entering floor 2 at just about the same time. Razorflame just having the slightest of leads.
Yep. Oh, another acid. This is an acid rainbow heavy matchup. It's. By the way, Gator Gal mentioning a common rumor because Azure Dreams came out just in the peak schoolyard rumor about secret game mechanics version of things. There was a long-standing rumor that Ghost wasn't as a romantic candidate for the dating sim portion of this game in the Japanese. That's not true, but it would be nice in your hypothetical imaginary remake. Also, what would be nice is Malika Zero is mentioning a higher tower. There actually is a secret second tower hidden in the game's code that was dummied out. We're guessing sometime between review copies and final release because it was very buggy and a little incomplete, but it's absolutely fascinating.
Definitely. So with access to a Game Shark and a little bit of know-how, or wow, Razorflame getting kabumped up to floor 3 there.
That looked like it might have been the world's tiniest track room. Out of its, what, like 4 interior tiles, 6 interior tiles, 2 of them were traps.
Something along those lines.
Itty bitty. Anyway, but yes, with a bit of know-how, a Game Shark or your randomizer, it's still complete enough to be accessed through a secret, hidden, unlockable elevator on the second floor, which explains why the second floor has, like, a mirrored layout that you never do anything with, ever. The answer is that there was going to be something to do with it, but they removed it very shortly before release, it looks like.
Yes, that's my best guess. And who knows, they may have had thoughts of putting it back into the Japanese re-release of the game, but never did. Ooh, Razorflame playing with fire here, down to 2 HP. He does have that medicinal. Oh, and Shuzo coming across a cursed iron sword. That's not that great of an improvement to his attack, and of course, getting that curse debuff is going to potentially cause him to miss more, or cases where traps might otherwise have failed to go off. I think it might be not possible for that failure to happen, or at least much more difficult. Yeah, so that's a prison trap running out when it did.
Very lucky.
Yes.
A phenomenal stroke of good fortune in otherwise things. But that Iron Sword being cursed shows off why we don't often see runners commit to a weapon, particularly not a weapon like an Iron Sword, before you hit floor 5 or so.
Yes, they may be a little bit more willing if they've got a decurse in their inventory, but otherwise players will often play a little bit more conservatively. Unlike the conservative play we see from both of our players here, Shuzo down to just 8 HP, relying on CUNY to tank those hits.
And he's running out of HP himself. This is getting to be risky business.
Yes, CUNY's down to 4 now, and will... Ooh, down to 1 HP or possibly 2 if he's regen 1. But
yeah, that's not good.
Down goes CUNY. Yes,
on floor 3, that is not a good position to be in. And Shuzo is definitely feeling the worst of this. And if he has to leave the tower, then he is not going to have a good restart, which is the biggest thing about losing Kyun so early. He has not had the time to build up levels that could really help you if you need to leave the tower through an emergency like getting made into a pulp.
Speaking of medicinal there, I'm sure that's something that he wishes he had just a few moments ago. That is... Quite oftentimes, you're going to find crystals that you pick up are wind crystals, and so to find a water crystal here, it's such a common, easy to make mistake due to the
I don't know if that's a mistake or if that's him saluting his poor fallen Kyun and hoping that maybe it would act as a restore scroll. It doesn't. And that's the end of that. It doesn't.
Right. I like that thought though, just pouring one out, one being a water crystal in this case, for your fallen comrade. So
how dare it come to him now when he is this? Anyway, so Razor Flame taking a little while to get some HP back before he goes on, continuing to explore the 4th floor.
Yep. And switching to his Stream Wand, that's something that's been to Razor Flame's credit. He has been willing to switch wands. And down
goes down. Yep, monster magic is not often used, but every once in a while, it just makes your life much more difficult, and it can end runs. So I frequently, gently scoff at the reliability of something like a Repel Ball or a Mirror Shield. Well, the Repel Ball would have helped you, personally. It would only help Kyun, but... while I occasionally scoff at the viability of it, when those effects can be used, or when the effects do kick in for you, it could save a life. That is nothing to sneeze at.
Certainly. So at least Shuzo was not at too high of a floor, and you know, a 10-minute time loss is not insurmountable. But as you mentioned, Kyun probably would only be, I think, level 3 or at most 4.
Stream wands everywhere.
Yeah. We see that Razor Flame also does have the CC'd in his inventory, which he could use as another way of tuning his CUNY to water when CUNY's high enough leveled.
Yep, that is an option. There's also that Poompa if he manages to get the blue collar. Or since you're unlikely in a race environment to see Kyun get to a level where there's no point in raising up his spell level any further before around that floor, give or take. That said, like everything in Azure Dreams, oh wow, that is a lot of monsters in the room directly above Razor Flame. I suspect he is going any way but that. Interesting that he's throwing away that copper sword, even though there are still cyclones about. He is committing to that stream wand. Oh, and a restore scroll. Oh, poor Shuzo. Poor Shuzo. Things could have been so different had he only made it just a little bit further.
Yes, and that's always the eternal struggle is, you know, it's like waiting for a bus. You know, the bus hasn't arrived for some time. Do I continue waiting for it, or do I, find alternate means? Get on the subway or something along those lines.
Right. It's a hard call to make, though in this case, Shuzo kind of had it made on his behalf, which is unfortunate. Razorflame having to be a little bit careful. He does not have the HP to support that Madoiva being directly on his tail.
Yep, he does find the elevator and a trap, which thankfully does not go off.
Yep.
And
it looks like he'll be able to make it up, but he'll have to. I don't know what you were expecting, Razorflame. I really don't.
I guess he wants the experience from fighting it. Although,
it's very possible that he does not know that in addition to throwing your monster or throwing a thing you pick up, you can also set it gently down, which is, I think, what he was trying to do there.
Right. I missed exactly Q's HP value, but I did see that it was red and flashing, which is a good sign that Q was in danger. Thankfully, that attack kills, because the flame could have otherwise.
Oh, hello, Flame. Hello, chanting sled.
Oh, yes, that is rude. Not even introducing itself, but just from off-screen, labeling Kuhn, probably bringing him down to 1 HP if I had to take a guess.
Yeah, he does have a restore scroll, but not having to use it is always nice. Luckily, the elevator is right next door, and he saw it in the way in, so he'll be able to zip up to floor 7 pretty easily, and in the meanwhile have an escape route here on floor 6 to wait and recover his HP.
Yep, Razorflame in a bit of a ornery mood today, it seems, at least, deciding that he wants to take out more monsters rather than speeding directly up. Perfectly valid when you've got that easy escape like that, but that pugnacious approach we've seen sometimes has been does have mixed results. I've seen players in this tournament fight quite a bit, and as a result of that, not make it up quite as far. However, of course, Razorflame is in the lead here, on 7, quite likely soon to be 8.
Yep.
And
taking a little chance to recover up Kuhn. He used it on Lean to not have to deal with that Madoiva, which makes sense given how low. Oh, this is a bad room. I bet he kind of wishes he had that Olean now.
Yep.
To say goodbye to that U-boat. Olean is one of those items that can get overlooked if you're playing the game casually. Because at first you think, oh, it just gets rid of your monster and sends you home. That's bad. Why would you want that? That's like a wind crystal, except in every way infinitely worse. But what it's actually used for is chucking at monsters and making them go away forever.
Yep, it's never been conclusively determined where exactly those Oleamed monsters go. Some people have suggested they end up going to the town, although I think that's kind of unlikely given that you're giving up the monster forever. Perhaps there are other monster powers around the world, and when monsters get yeeted from one, they end up spawning in the next.
Ooh, holy scroll on Razorflame inside. That's very nice. Shuzo making his way back up to floor 4. for this race is still pretty close, even when you account for that accident. If a situation turns bad on Razorflame's side, Shuzo could very easily take the lead here still.
Yeah, not letting too much of a gap open up despite the paucity of equipment that Shuzo's had available to him, still operating without a weapon or without a shield.
That must be that is a scary situation.
Skeef, thanks for that. I do remember now that lore from the Game Boy Color version, that using an Olim on a monster, Cutie says they disappear, and he doesn't like the idea of using it. Although I do believe it's probably true in the Game Boy Color game as well, that if you attempt to use an Olim on Cunie, he will refuse to eat it. In the PlayStation version, it says that Cutie has returned it.
Interesting that he's used 2 health seeds, one on himself and one on Cunie, so that they're able to super speed through this night floor at a faster pace than literally everything around them. At least, well, until that route, and getting him into a bit of a tight situation with that U-boat. But a fire spell does set things to right.
Yep.
And also, unfortunately, immediately following up by getting pincered. Sort of between a bloom and yet another U-boat, because the U-boat train never stops. It is the water. It is around the Atlantic Circle. Go World War I or some nonsense up in here.
So, Razorflame using a fireball on a Dreamin', something that we see somewhat less often, but Dreamins can act as something of a force multiplier insofar as them putting you to sleep could make another more dangerous monster like that U-boat be ever more of a threat. It'd be really nice if you could tell Cunie, hey, if we get in trouble like this, just start pushing me along, let's get out of here, or, wake me up. But no, Cunie will defend your honor to the end.
Unless you're in a doorway.
Oh, yes, well, in which case, you can just go jump in the lake as far as Cunie's concerned.
If he can't see... Hey, what the eye don't see, the heart can't breathe. Razorflame, seeing those 2 U-boats converging on him... Wait, what just happened there? Was he using a water crystal? Thank you, okay. For a moment, I was expecting him to be noping out of this situation, but it being a water crystal makes a lot of sense. Dual U-boat dancing, that is not something we see every day. He can't keep it up for too terribly long, but it's fun to see when it happens. Now the question is, what does he do with this situation?
Yep.
It looks like he will be tossing that Palumpa, using it as a bomb to dispatch that U-boat. I think I might have used the Holy Scroll in this situation. I think that might have been a slightly better call in terms of dealing with the whole situation with as little expenditure as possible.
Yep, I think that a pickup might have also been reasonable, but it's just a little bit of risk tolerance that if you're going for the pickup and failing, that definitely does foreclose on your options and could foreclose on your life. So, we
Still
see...
makes it 410. Shuzo has at least picked up a shield. I haven't seen if he's picked up a weapon, and getting a little disoriented from the... Yes, he has picked up, I think, a money wand it was. And so we'll be able to see how he gets through these next couple of floors and what a second tower, their second trip to the tower has in store as we get into the water floors on his end. And Razorflame finally fully exits the water floors into redder pastures.
So the floor difference has remained relatively consistent at 4 floors here. Razorflame does have the opportunity to open it up a little bit further, but sometimes players will prefer to gain a little bit of extra experience here. Being level 8 on 410 is not a bad place to be.
No, it is not. You can do much worse in terms of the XP. This is also a good chance for him to sort of refuel on his item, and there's that dream of sleep. He snaps out of it right away, so we don't get to show off how absolutely agonizing it can be sometimes. Because it can be agony.
So
looks
there
like
we saw
Shuzo found a nice fire sword, and that's a pretty good option. Not the best, but the same type attack bonus does make it about equal to a wand. As long as that wand isn't a scarlet wand.
Yes. It's like, compared to just a plain wooden wand, it's going to deal more damage with Kuni's attack. Because the same type of attack bonus is the same as the wand bonus, plus the added attack of the fire sword itself, means that you'll be able to do more damage. It does have a little bit of a lower accuracy though.
And a higher chance of being cursed. On the other hand, you can red sand it.
It's true.
And if King dies, you still have a meaningful offensive option, at least against fire and wind monsters. Water monsters, not quite so much.
Right, so we see Shuzo there, also dancing with the U-boat, picking up with that Olim. Sometimes when you encounter monsters and Olims so close to one another that you're like, well, the game has given me this hammer. I see that U-boat looking rather nail-shaped. That periscope is gonna get whacked. But Shuzo, to his credit, realizing that he didn't need to use that resource at all, and as a result, getting to keep it for the next floors, and closing that gap a little bit. Now, on
floor 8. I doubt his inventory situation is not bad. It's not perfect, but it's not bad.
Certainly true. And isn't as high of a level. Razorflame there, fighting up to level 10 before going up the elevator, which means that he is going to absolutely roll through these, at least the troll. The Dreamins, being wind elemental, are going to be a little bit more resistant.
Yeah. As a general rule of thumb, I find that water and fire monsters are easy to distinguish through just their basic designs. But if you're not sure if something is wind or water, ask yourself this question. Does it inflict an annoying status ailment? If yes, it's probably wind. That is my rule of thumb.
That's a great one. To me, it always falls down on Arachnes, because to me I haven't seen this from other players necessarily, but they inflict an annoying status condition called death on me. So
that is a common problem. Yeah, that can be a run after dying. The quintessential run ender.
Yep. So Shuzo finding a wand here. He has both that money and wooden wand, and wisely decides not to equip either one of them, given that he already has a superior attacking option, at least in terms of damage output. With his current element. He has
left Kyun far behind. Notices this only now, but Kyun has wandered off somewhat. Kyun can be very distractible the moment your back is turned, unless you use like an AI one. And there we go. That's the end of Shuzo's Kyun.
And you know, the game has the courtesy to tell you what finished off Kyun by saying, you know, that U-boat gained so many experience. So,
he's at a pretty high floor. At a point where Kyun's damage, at a point where Kyun's damage is about to start making a difference again. But it wouldn't be surprising to see him get quite a bit of run under his belt, just through means of sprinting and getting quite a few floors. I wouldn't be surprised if he moves technically even faster than he was previously, though that looks like, is that an upheaval? That's an upheaval. Crack traps make things go down.
Yeah, that was a crack trap that he hit there, which sunk the floor in that 5x5 area. So Razorflame, meanwhile, taking an opportunity to hatch an egg that he's found in the tower. I didn't catch exactly what floor that egg was on, nor do I have on this computer the chart in front of me to know.
But it could be. We do know that it can't be, since he is on his first entry into the tower.
Yep.
We do know that he can't have found it in the first 4 or so floors, because the game does not want you finding eggs that quickly, and probably doesn't want you finding eggs besides the guaranteed Palumpa on your first entry, because it doesn't expect you to last much longer than 4 or 5 or so.
A balloon. Probably not what he was looking for. He could have been looking for a U-boat, perhaps, depending on exactly what floor he found it on. Although he has switched to the balloon. He would be able to use the fly ability here, I do believe, to go up to the next floor. Of course, he could also use the other tool standing directly next to him to do the same.
I guess he wants to do it for the swag, but he's only level 11. He's on floor 12.
So yes, if you were on the same level, speaking of things that are on floor 11, Shuzo has made it up there to floor 11. Razor's now on 13, but
so this has become a very tiny gap. Admittedly now getting resized due to Razorflame wrecking into an elevator right in his floor 13 spawn room. Nice to have. Star Glasses, an excellent tool, but Shuzo is in quite the pickle.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that Volcano would be able to take him out with a single hit.
And I doubt the Griffin is far behind.
Yeah.
It's not ahead.
I probably would have used that blinder ball to have the Griffin to dispatch it that way, or I do believe he still has the Oline, unless he used it. So, he still could get out of this. A pickup is possible.
It looks like his internet has hiccuped, or something of that sort at the moment. And
Oh.
that or his controller is having difficulties, something like that. Razorflame
we see
finds an item
controller
that is
difficulties.
first. Yep. And that brings the second entry for Shuzo to an end. He's still only at half time, and so a decent floor count. One that could maybe even overcome where Razorflame is at currently, at least. Is still pretty viable. Though Razorflame is going to naturally, at least hopefully, still be making progress. His run could still be, oh, something else found that warp trap that is about the best situation he could hope for.
Exactly. So Krakens, we haven't talked much about the awfulness that is the Kraken, this stream. Krakens, quite mean.
They are hateful.
Yep, thankfully not, using a, metallic weapon, so he is able to at least not get damage reflected back, and with that, Blizzard Sword spell that he's now using, having switched Cuny over to Water Element, not coming up against the elemental disadvantage. So
That is true. If you manage to switch your Kyun over, the one thing that you're going to need to keep in mind is that your sense of what is very threatening may need a slight adjustment. In the same way that blocks go from fairly easy to take out to very threatening, Garudas become much more scary. Is another thing to keep in mind. But a great number of monsters become much less scary. Take into account, for example, one-shotting that troll with the greatest of ease.
Yep. So Razorflame comes across a wind crystal, deciding not to pick that up. I think he already has one in his inventory, but if nothing else, knowing that he already has a good number of resources and is going to be, may not be attempting a re-entry if he gets booted out. Starting in a room with just a single way out, thankfully only one monster in that room, and he dispatches it before running into that confusion trap.
Which is a good relief to have.
Yes. It can be quite dangerous if you otherwise do not have, or if you have a number of monsters in that spawning room, just because there's one way out, and you're gonna have to expend some sort of resource, be it HP or an item, in order to make it through there.
Yep. Finding a tumbler fruit, that is a nice thing to have. It looks like he's feeling confident enough to do at least a little bit of exploration, though that tumbler fruit is now easy come, easy go.
Very true. Shuzo getting a few early levels back by beating up on some trolls.
Yep, and the early levels are really the most important. Most things in this game have sort of a diminishing return when it comes to level effect. Your first level, for example, gives you a whopping 10 HP, and everything after that gives you less, and less, and less than 10 HP. Until eventually the gap is pretty much insignificant.
Yeah, the formula for how HP scales with level is just really weird. It's got essentially square roots in it, and various other things, which makes it kind of tricky to predict. Certainly if anyone gave me just that sequence of numbers, I'd have a hard time telling them what came next with any sort of certainty. Opting not to take the Mirror Shield. The Steel Shield providing additional defense, 6 versus 3, but not having any additional benefits like being rust-proof or being able to reflect spells back with a 75% likelihood.
Yeah, that is... The Mirror Shield, if you can invest into it, does have advantages that other shields do not. And so that is a thing worth keeping in mind. Likely if you're playing the game casually or, say, a bookless run, because we do have multiple speedrunning categories for this game, and some of which involve taking a bit more time, making more trips to the tower, more in the name of finding money or advancing storylines or so on.
Interesting that Razorflame opted to use his Fire Crystal there on the Soul Manueva. Given that he's running a Water Cune, he would be able to do at least neutral elemental damage to it, and it considerably resists fire. I wouldn't have thought that it would be useful in a case where he's getting bullied by a few monsters, including a few of those pickets, because the pickets are not too dangerous in terms of damage output, but the fact that they're able to move twice, the fact that they're able to steal items from you can make that troublesome.
She's finding a nice little care package.
Yes. Now, Repel and Recovery, as a combo, they work alright. And you could still use Recovery on CUNY himself, but you don't want to...
It's not very space efficient, let's be honest.
Right.
And that is relevant. A lot of people... One thing to talk about when thinking about what items to keep and what items to get rid of is resource density and resource versatility.
Mm-hmm.
A Repel Ball recovery item, a Repel Ball and Recovery Ball is spending 2 items for 1 benefit, spending 2 turns for 1 benefit, for that matter. And so it's hard to really justify the expense.
Entirely correct. Oh man, I am sure Shuzo didn't hit a single one of those traps before using that loop. Having lucked out into using it inside a trap room, not only not triggering any himself, and thus incurring the negative effects, but getting a experience from each one of those traps he uncovers at such a low level, that really does make a difference, helping bring Ko a little bit closer to CUNY's experience level.
Yep. The roguelike portion of this game, besides the fact that it has a procedurally generated dungeon, is in part because Ko is basically fresh and new every time, saving the 5 inventory items he brings with him. Whereas the game does allow a continued progression both in terms of those items if you're lucky enough to hold on to them, and in terms of your monster's levels. And so those become your biggest resource on re-entries, particularly after a bad ad spill upsets whatever setup you had going on prior.
Yep, so we saw Shuzo there fall asleep in door frame with, the picket did enter from be next to CUNY, so CUNY was fighting back, and being both, fighting a picket and having the high ground, never really was in too much danger, but I was beginning to get worried if more monsters had come by, more pickets. Death by 1,000 paper cuts is a real thing.
That it is. Shuzo managed to find a medicinal herb, does this razor flame, use a medicinal herb to increase Kuhn's max HP, because that's a thing you can do on the rare occasion you happen to have a medicinal herb and Kuhn has full health at the same time, and you're not too concerned with holding on to your health either, because the medicinal herbs become outpaced due to monster levels, which isn't quite a thing yet. He still could have gotten some use out of it, so it's interesting to me that he decided just to kind of show off a little bit and give Kuhn +1 HP. Oh,
Ooh.
That's gonna hurt. Loss of a holy scroll, not fun.
Yep, we see Razor Flame fighting off against a wee dog here. Thankfully, this is one of those cases where the strength of the water strats absolutely shines through. Able to dispatch it in 2 hits, no trouble at all.
That is the picket that has his holy scroll. It comes up, it taunts him, it walks away.
Could have
Pickets are strange
his-
little friends on that.
It is very strange indeed. Exploitably so in some cases. Razor Flame setting to
Oh, this is not very... Razor Flame's Acid Rain Ball, I can't tell if that's an internet issue or if the game has soft locked, or at least taking its time, which can happen. Acid Rain Balls are very, very tricky things, and the sheer amount of damage over a set of monsters that it has to calculate at the same time can cause some problems. As Skeefstream points out, his sound is still playing, which means it probably is a technical issue on his. It is probably an issue in which the game has soft lock, which is, or at least slowed down significantly, because sometimes it isn't a complete lock. Sometimes it's only a small amount of lock that the game will recover from.
The fact that the animations aren't going, though, does have me concerned. Generally, a semi-soft lock will,
sign of the game being alive besides the audio. Interesting. There was a unicorn spell sound on this side. We will see what will happen as a result of that, and I suppose what one can do after this point.
Yeah, I'll note that to him that he can try holding square to see if he can bring up a menu.
Seems to have cut the audio on his side, so I'm going to switch to Shuzo's side for a little bit. We did see an egg on Shuzo's side on that scroll-in. That is a lot of monsters in that room. I would not want to go into that room. I would head for that egg and look for an exit if I were Shuzo, but I am not. And so we will see how Shuzo's particular decisions play out.
Yep. So I'm going to... So I'm asking him about the technical situation. We will, of course, still let things run. Okay, yes, it was a full crash.
Okay.
He's noted that that if he were in second, that he'd be fine moving on to game 3. I'll note
He
that
is not at
was
the
in the lead.
moment. So we will see if Shuzo manages to make up 14 floors in roughly 13 minutes. That is a tall order. It's not inconceivable, but he's going to have to get very lucky or very fast or both.
Yep.
And of course, he doesn't know that that is what needs to happen.
Right.
He may be looking at the time and realizing that he is running low. He doesn't know necessarily what his goals are. That is something that we know and are judging from that vantage point.
Yep.
In the meanwhile, and yeah, it does look like he still has nothing to go on. No one, pretty much, in terms of weapons. He is still running Playfinger, which really means that these are not good fights for him. In the interest of speeds, an elevator chain would be the thing. In the interest of speed, he probably, and survivability, these are matches that are going to take him a long time due to his lower damage, and he can very likely get out damaged by 1 or 2 monsters before they can finish him off, and that makes this whole thing a dicey proposition, if he doesn't have a whole lot of resources, because this tower has been very stingy with him in a few regards, including his total lack of weaponry.
Yeah, and I think Shuzo meant to put CUNY at the 1 space diagonal to where he did, which would have let CUNY get a hit off if Ko took a step back. Thankfully, he did deal enough damage to be able to take out that bloom. And
take the elevator, Shuzo! Take the elevator!
It looks like your words have punctured through even the time-space continuum itself, as there is a sizable stream delay. And Shuzo, though, hearing the wise words of Deme echoing through time itself, moving on to floor 7 here, but choosing
like a zero escape open here. Anyway, but he's fighting these Manoweavas, though his health really cannot afford that. And I'm pretty worried if I were him about treating these as fights I can win. Because they're come very close to not being, and I think anything more formidable, and there's a lot more formidable, is going to cause him a lot of trouble.
You're right, and the one opponent that he does not have particular reason.
Oh no! Warp Trap,
and he chooses not.
Well, I suppose at the end of the day, he does still have that elevator right in the next room. He's not far away at all, and he could be using that elevator, but he isn't. He's fighting this stupid Manoweava. You have 10 minutes left, Shuzo.
Yep.
You can have like a little weaponless slap fight using your shining fingers on things.
Well, I think that the lack of a weapon is probably making Shuzo feel, rather, unequipped in a literal sense, and
yeah, it's
looking for any sort of
understandably very spooky. He's spooky walking around with really nothing but Ko's bare hands and a little bit of magic. At long last, a weapon, but between him and the weapon is that bloom.
Yep, we'll see if Shuzo again takes a step back using AI1. Especially given that CUNY is at full health, I like to have CUNY
that's just mean. That's just mean.
Yeah. So I like to have CUNY attempt to fight alongside me when I'm fighting Bloom for exactly that reason. The Bloom can attempt the brainwash on CUNY. CUNY will always resist it, and thereby Gulf Wind, not the ideal case.
Literally nothing.
It's a +1 Gulf Wind. I mean, I'll take that over a Cursed Gold Sword any day.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And there's the start of an elevator train that could be very meaningful and very useful.
Yep.
Cool.
And that familiar bell too. Should another warp trap strike unexpectedly, does have to get up to floor 21. But that elevator train keeps going. Toot toot.
Toot toot. It would be very nice to see it continue. It doesn't look like it's going to, but one can hope. One can live in hope, and there is something to be said for not stopping until it's over. Oh, that's unpleasant.
Yes, those boat trolls.
Oh, crap.
Oh.
Ow.
So the trolls being side by side there means that Ko would get no respite.
Yep.
And
don't use the malicious scroll. Don't use the malicious scroll. It's not going to help you. Remember what I was saying about boat trolls not caring about confusion? Here we are. Boat trolls don't care about confusion. He at least realizes that he can start running, but it's too late.
Ooh,
it's too late.
Yes.
Boat trolls don't care about confusion, and it is always such a sad thing. That means that the best of 3 portion of this match is over. We might be able to see if they want a friendly third. Either way, good game to both runners. That was a valiant struggle on Shuzo's side with very little to work with.
Yep. So we'll he is choosing to stay in bed. Of course, if he had wanted to attempt something that those last 5 minutes, we do leave those open to the runner if they're so inclined. I'm sure Deme is only checking to see if, because he's not gone out of bed,
yeah,
so,
I'm just... Okay, looks like we will not be seeing a friendly third. We might be seeing an interview. At this point, it's pretty clear that Shuzo is calling it.
Yep.
But I will quickly make sure. Actually, I probably should not quite have said things when I said them, but you know.
Yes. That's we do like to ensure that we're not making the decisions for the runners, that that they're able to come to those themselves and have that full time if they choose to make themselves choose to use it.
Admittedly, it would be impossible for him to climb up 20 floors in 4 minutes, but still, one can experiment with re-entry in those last couple of minutes. Or just get back onto the horse. Or as if you really want it to. But I can also understand calling it over, laying it a break.
Yep.
Etc., etc.
We've seen the timer be reset, so I think that would do it. We will see if the players are interested in an interview.
There we go. Oh, and we'll be hearing back from them very shortly. Currently, it looks like Razorflame is willing to join us, and probably did just join us. Hello, Razorflame! Those were some excellent runs today. The soft lock is a huge shame.
I actually think it's a hard lock.
Definitely. That was a case where not even the graphics were going. No amount of tomfoolery like a respectable fool managed to show us escaping the salamander soft lock could have saved you there. But
it is a shame. I kind of wonder why that happened, because the traditional triggers weren't there. You know, you normally hear that about monster dens is not to use an acid rainbow. Actually, I kind of wonder if this was an untriggered monster den or something.
Probably. Wouldn't it have triggered as soon as I entered the room?
Hello.
Somewhere. Hey.
Oh, and also, no, actually. There have been situations where one racer has entered a room and not triggered a monster den, and the other one has, and it's the same room. So there does seem to be a bit of RNG when it comes to those triggers.
There might indeed be for the, just like ordinary traps, but, in any case, so the games, you ended up, staying pretty close for, the beginning portions, that, generally no more than 2 floors difference or so, up to floor 12.
We stretch of about 4 floors difference on that second race in the first little while, but that final tower, Shuzo, that was so stingy with weapons, that must have hurt.
Yeah. It was rough.
Yeah, the first and the second game, the first couple of floors didn't have much, but after that, it opened up quite a lot.
Yeah, we saw game 1, second entry.
Yep.
The game was uncommonly generous, giving a Scarlet Wand, I think a Steel Shield.
+1.
Yeah.
Yes.
It also gave, I believe, it also gave a Mazar seed. No, that was that was the first time up. Second time up, I know I got a Shomuro seed that was in the second game, but first match, first time up, it gave me like 3 stream wands.
Yeah, I found all of those. There was a Scarlet Wand on like a couple floors later, though, or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't find it because when I hit floor 6, I tend to just go straight to 10 and then grind at 10 until level 9 or 10. That's what I normally do.
That is, I think, a pretty solid policy in terms of availability. Otherwise, well, those floors are not very hospitable.
Yes. The second game was going well. The first game, the second time up, was really generous with its magic balls.
Right. Yes.
It gave 2 acid rain balls. It gave a pillar. It gave a flame. It gave a blinder. Other than that, it didn't. And then it gave the Scarlet Wand and the Steel Shield +1. Other than that, yeah, it was pretty uneventful for the rest of the floors.
Yeah, it did also give 2 restore scrolls, and
yes.
We felt a little bit bad for you, Shuzo, that when CUNY met an unfortunate end, your first restore scroll, I think you there might have been like a double button input or something like that. It like probably tried to use the restore scroll on itself, and so didn't work. Thankfully, you did have that second one in reserve, but no one ever likes to see, a spazzing controller or something like that cause a major resource loss.
Yeah, it's... Frankly, I think it is always impressive when someone has quite a rough a time of it as you had, Shuzo, and keeps going, even when the tower is saying, no breaks for you, buddy.
What was the ending floor on the second match?
22... Let's see, what was it?
I think the highest I got was 11?
11
that
sounds
matches
about right.
my notes.
Yeah, like...
Yeah.
I like
And a
Rush
lot
it
of that
through,
would
but
be
the
the
tower
two-
lately has just been, nope, you cannot
Yeah.
win this game today.
That actually that reminds me of my first match against Chai, where I died twice and re-entered twice in the first match, and I died twice and re-entered once in the second match.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Like, I think, like, that first one, though, the only thing was I think it was my second time up, I had that wind crystal, and there was a point where I stopped and I was debating dropping it sooner to head back, because it would have gave me more time, and I'm like, no, we'll trudge through a few more floors. I think I probably should have just burned it at that point.
Yeah. I actually did take a death at floor in the first match. First time up, I actually took a death, and I actually thought I was behind. I think it was like floor 15 or something around there. I took a death, and then I had to go get CUNY from the bed, and then I had to get PETA from Mom. So I actually thought I was behind, but then second time up, everything just aligned, and I was able to rocket up the tower. I think it went from floor 16 to floor 28 in 10 minutes.
Oh, dang.
You were a little bit behind at the start of that second entry on the first race. Shuzo lost Kyun earlier, but died a little bit later and reached, I think, floor also 11 come to that at that first time around.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you lost Kyun later, but died a little bit earlier.
Yeah, the one thing that was unfortunate is I got an acid ball hard lock. Second match, floor 20.
Yep, and that is very unfortunate. You both did a great job this race.
Yeah, I basically I used an acid ball, and I probably could have made it out, but I would have had two wee dogs following me. I had switched my CUNY to water because I had found the stream wand earlier, and I used the white sand to get the acid ball another charge, and then I was gonna use it here because I figured I'd have to deal with them anyways. So, but something happened, game hard locked, and
Yep. Those wild pointers, they're wild for sure. Shuzo, do you have any closing remarks for us? Any closing thoughts?
Nah, just looking forward to the next one, really.
yeah,
See what the towers got next time.
Yeah. For me,
thank y'all for getting us set up on such short notice, though.
Yeah,
that was great.
I do want to thank both of you guys for doing comms and for SG to be able to set this up in like 2 hours, hour and a half. But I do want to say that for me, this was a must win. For me, if I didn't win, I would have that actually would have locked in both Shuzo and Chai for the winners of this group.
Well,
Is a good point. This tournament will eventually become a sort of bracket format, where the top scorers of the two groups compete off, and so that will be fun to see. It'll be fun to see how the rest of the tournament develops.
Yeah, because if I had lost, I would have gone 2-2, and Chai would be 4-1. Or 3-1 or 4-1, and not Chai, sorry, Shuzo would be 4-1, and Chai would already be at 4 wins, and I'd be at. So the best I would have been able to do is 3-2. But now with the win today, I'm at 3-1, which I believe is the same. It's either the same as Shuzo or somewhere around there. But all I'm saying is I have a chance. If I'll have to win next week as well, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, well, echoing the sentiment that Shuzo expressed, he's looking forward to his next week's match. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing good performances out of both of you. Yep. I wish you, happy tower climbing, and would like to thank chat for helping sort out even some audio issues earlier on. Thank you to SpeedGaming for getting us set up on short notice, as noted. Thank you, Deme, for also jumping in here. And why don't we go
Quite
ahead
welcome.
And if someone can put a bang R in chat to give links so people can follow these wonderful runners. Thank you, Deme. And we will see you all for our next match. And looking forward to that.
Good job, runners, and I hope to see you all next time.